Welcome to today's episode. Today I'm going to teach you a tool that is one of the most important tools that you could ever learn to help you with your relationship. It's a tool that I use nearly every single day. And when I use it once, it makes an impact the very first time. But what really makes the impact is when you do use this tool over time. It kind of falls into something that we do anyways. It makes me think one of the things I do, like I participate in different Facebook groups for this business, for my other business, personally. And you see in there all the time, people do this, that they kind of gripe about this or that, or give advice, or they kind of share their unedited thoughts. And you see this when people end up into these quibbling matches in Facebook, going back and forth. And it's like, oh my gosh, you probably would never say that to somebody in person to get in that kind of fight, but that anonymity of being on social media, right? We let some of those unfiltered thoughts, unedited thoughts dump out. You do it with your friends. I have a long-standing walking partner, and we've been walking once a week since our kids were in preschool together. Our kids are way long out of preschool, way past that stage. But, we just let everything dump out, right? We let things go. It's a need we have as human beings to share things, to say things. And there are different levels of people. Some people are really big verbal processors, right? Somebody you could just like walk into a room and they start talking. I had a roommate once who did that. He'd walk in the room and he just started talking and talking. And after a while, I'm like, I think he's just talking at me. It doesn't even really matter what I'm saying in response. And I will try and make gestures for leaving the room. I'm done listening to you now. And he just keeps talking, even though I would leave the room. So there are people who are big verbal processors like that. And then, like many of you might have, like my particular firefighter, not big verbal out loud processors. Can be tough to get 10 words out sometimes. But even if you do it out loud, even those people who aren't doing it out loud, I still think they're doing it in their head. Because whatever's coming out of your mouth, there's even more going on in your head. And so this tool is a really important tool for clearing your head. Right now, there's a lot of meditation classes, right? Meditation and yoga are very popular practices right now and have been for some time. But they can also be, I know a lot of people will get turned off by, especially the meditation piece, with the way that their head, their mind, their thoughts just keep interjecting. And you're supposed to just like have the thought come up and then let it go. And then another one comes and let it go. Great in theory can be really hard in practice. And part of the reason why it's hard in practice is because, as we've talked about in other episodes, what your brain wants to do is it wants to conserve energy. Remember, I've talked about this, I think even just in last week's episode. I talked about how the brain, the real primitive part of your brain, two pieces. It's like looking out for danger so you can jump, right? Like your cat that goes from asleep to pouncing, or it wants to be at rest. Again, the cat, 18 hours laying down so that it has its energy for that fight or flight kind of action. So your brain wants to do what's easy. And what's easy for your brain, back to if you're sitting meditating on a mat, what's easy for your brain to do is to keep recycling the same thoughts. So as you're saying, like, oh, there's that thought, I'm going to let it go. There's that thought, I get to let it go. Holy crap, there's that thought again. Oh my gosh, would you please go away? I'm a failure, epic failure at this meditating thing. Okay, maybe that's just me, or maybe somebody else can identify with me out there. The brain wants to just do what's easy, keep recycling the same thoughts over and over again. That's why you also see in your relationships, right, that we have the same arguments over and over again. My parents have been married for over 50 years, and my mom is still complaining about the same thing that she was 30 years ago. Well, really, actually, the complaint started the first year of their marriage, the first time they started living together, which was right after they got married. They didn't live together before they got married. But that complaint, even though my dad's behavior around that complaint has changed in 50 years, she still has the same complaint, right? Because it's easy on the brain to do that. It's such a go-to. When I was a kid, I always used to like to read these romance novels that were set like on the wagon trail road to California or things like this. And he talk about the ruts that would get made in the dirt from these wagon trains going west, westward ho, right? You can actually even see them still today. There's places that they have preserved them, right? Or kept them in the ground where you can still see these wagon wheel ruts. And so your brain is like that with your thoughts, that you get ruts in your brain. And it actually is, they even are, because we know so much about more about how the brain works. There's, these things called neuro pathways, right? We develop these neuro pathways of thoughts, habituated thoughts. And so we just keep going to them over and over and over again. And this is how we really become stuck. So this tool is a tool to move you beyond these same old wagon wheel ruts of thoughts. If you use this tool every day, like you use the tool of brushing your teeth, or heck, even if you use this tool a couple of times a week, right? And you just kept coming back to it over and over and over again. No judgment when you miss a day, because that doesn't help. Just makes you feel bad. Doesn't help get you actually motivated to do it the next time. But if you use this tool, this is how you get yourself out of these thinking patterns. So you're not complaining to your friends about the same things over and over again. You're not complaining to your spouse over and over again about the same thing from day one in your relationship 50 years later. So you can move beyond where you're at right now. It's a comfortable, uncomfortable place, right? We're comfortable with the discomfort that we know, right? I can stay in this level of discomfort because I know it. It's a discomfort that I know, I understand. So what this tool is, similar to when you download things to your friends, right? On that walk with my friend, it's actually to do what we call a thought download, where instead of just thinking the thoughts in your head over and over again, you actually write them down on a piece of paper. Now, the reason why this is different than just thinking about your thoughts, this is you actually have to do the physical task of writing the things down. This isn't like Dear Diary. This is, or necessarily in a particular direction, but just to get the thoughts out of your head onto a piece of paper. Because in your head, you can repeat the same thoughts over and over again, like a mantra, right? An earworm of a song that keeps going around and around and around. What happens when you start writing it down, your brain moves to a new thought. Your finger moves to a new line, your brain moves to a new thought. Now, you could write the same thing down a few times, but you get bored with it, right? You want to ask, you can know, what else is there? What else is there? And that moves you to a different thought. So take out a piece of paper, and to start with, the best thing to just start with is a blank sheet of paper. And I know, if you were back in English class in high school or something, a blank sheet of paper is terrifying. So you can even start with that. A blank sheet of paper is terrifying. Don't know how I'm going to fill up this whole page. So you're going to just start writing at the top of the page, and you're going to put whatever comes to mind on the paper. And that's just what you want to start with. That's why I say, yeah, you can start with, I'm supposed to fill out this whole page. I don't know what I'm going to write on this page. What thoughts did I have today? This is a thought that I had today. If you have a question, what thoughts did I have today? Answer the question, right? I have to answer the question. At first, your answer is going to want to be, I don't know, right? I've got teenagers. How was school today? What'd you do in school today? I don't know. That is just the first thing that your brain wants to do. It wants to be confused. It doesn't want to know, right? These, again, these are ways for you to make it easy. It's easy to not know. It's easy to be confused. These are nice, convenient emotions that seem like real things to get you out of doing something. If anybody has teenagers, you have seen this. These highly skilled, highly capable human beings that kind of flop over and roll their eyes. I don't know. You're like, yes, I see that you are in pre-calculus and physics. I think you do know some things. Okay, maybe again, that's just my household. But take out that piece of paper and literally take out a piece of paper, any paper, grab one out of the recycling, rip open the inside of a empty cereal box, write on backs of envelopes, if you're sitting in your car, right? Whatever you've got handy, but an actual real piece of paper and a writing utensil. We'll leave it open for that, a pen, a pencil, a crayon, whatever it is, but write them down. It doesn't even have to be legible. Writing it down to get yourself to move to the next thing. So that's your first thing. This is a really great way to finish a day, right? If you've got space like that, instead of hitting play one more time for the next episode in the Netflix series that you might be watching, pick up a piece of paper and start writing on it. What were the thoughts I had today? What were some of the thoughts I had? And let it be easy to start with. Just go with the easy ones and fill up the page, right? Fill it up or write down at least 25 if you're writing on the back of receipts. Have yourself write down 25 of them. When you do this, the first thing that, like I said, is so helpful is it makes you move to other thoughts. The other thing that is so helpful with this is for you to become separate from your thoughts. You are not your thoughts. You don't act on all your thoughts. Not all of your thoughts do you believe. Some of them you do believe, doesn't mean it's true. Things that we believe are not always true. My other company is teaching adults how to be free in deep water, how to love and enjoy deep water. And they almost 100% universally think that when they're floating, they are supposed to be flat with the surface of the water. They're supposed to be parallel to the surface of the water. And the truth is that almost nobody is parallel to the surface of the water. That a float is when you don't do anything, right? A rubber ball, it just floats. It doesn't make itself float. It doesn't activate anything to float. It just is. A rock doesn't float. It doesn't do anything to not make itself float. It's just the physics principle. So if a person gets in water and they completely relax, and for people who are buoyant, they will float. But 97% of them are not horizontal with the surface of the water. Their arms and their legs droop down. It's 100% normal, but 100% of the people come in with a complete belief, a thought. Somebody gave them a thought along the way that said, you're supposed to be flat to the surface of the water in order to be floating. And if you're not, something is going wrong. And so this is one of the things that we have to dispel for them, is to help them to first know that they're believing this, that this is their thought. This is the wagon wheel rut in their brain. And then we have to give them space to unpack it. So for you, all day long, for me, for everybody, we're having thoughts that aren't even really necessarily true. They're just things that we inherited or things that we've been saying for a long time, right? Things we heard somewhere else, beliefs that we grew up with that we haven't stopped to question, right? They're just thoughts. They are not you. And the reason why I say they're not you is because you might notice that sometimes you have thoughts that when you step back from them, you're like, that is completely ridiculous. I wouldn't actually ever do that. Or I don't actually, in my heart of hearts, don't actually think that way. Or you could be surprised, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just thought that terrible thing, right? We sometimes think terrible things that we would never act on, and we don't truly identify with them, and they surprise us, right? Because thoughts are just gathered in from all kinds of places. And so we have, memories of things that get incorporated into thoughts. So it isn't necessarily who you are. Well, it definitely isn't who you are. Sorry. Just the ones that you choose to keep and act on move you forward and become part of your life. So let yourself unfiltered, unedited, put all of your thoughts down so they aren't a part of you. Give yourself some space from the good thoughts and the ridiculous thoughts. Start to see, are these thoughts that I've ever tested before, like my students in the water? Are these thoughts that I've just been practicing for a really long time? Are these thoughts true? Could there be other thoughts instead of these thoughts? We can move into a space of curiosity when we have the space from our thoughts. But we first have to create that space between the thoughts just rumbling over and over and over again in our head. We have to have them outside of us so they're not a part of us anymore. And this is a huge, powerful thing, to be a watcher of your thoughts instead of just a believer of your thoughts or a reactor of your thoughts, right? We just react rashly from a thought that when we're in a calmer mode, we wouldn't act from. Stepping outside of ourselves gives us a chance to slow that process down. Again, create space between your thoughts and your actions. So tonight, in the car while you're waiting to pick up some kid, when you're feeling lonely from your spouse being on shift, write down your thoughts so they don't have to be part of you. You can tear them up afterwards so nobody has to see them, right? So you could put all of the nasty ones down there and all of the good ones down there. I would say, though, if you're in a place where the thoughts are particularly what you would judge on the negative side, they're bringing up a lot of negative emotion, go ahead and let yourself get them out, right? This is a way that you can process those negative thoughts, but also balance them. Because whatever thoughts are that are on the negative side of our spectrum of feelings, there's a balance to them. So don't leave yourself in the space of just seeing your negative thoughts. Give yourself a chance to balance that out. For each negative one, what is one that is neutral that you had? And it could even be, this is my life, right? That feels better than my life is terrible. At some point, you may have been in a space of, yep, this is my life, right? So you can put that one down too. All right, my friends, this is your life. This is your beautiful life. Be committed to it. Be committed to taking care of yourself. This is a true self-care activity. That's where this came from when I was talking with people and listening to students about taking care of themselves and not having enough time to take for self-care, being given the advice for self-care, but feeling like I just don't have time for that, right? Taking a long bath, or I don't have money to buy myself something special, right? We think of those kinds of things in self-care. Taking good care of your thoughts This is the way that we have self-care. So be committed to taking care of yourself. Be present to what those thoughts are that keep spinning and spinning and spinning, and get them out of you. Get them onto a piece of paper. Even if the next day the same ones are coming up, let yourself keep moving through them. Keep working through them. Show up with curiosity. Bring this nice, beautiful curiosity into, look at these thoughts that I keep choosing to think. Interesting. I wonder why. Show up for love for yourself. This is truly self-love. Don't judge those thoughts. Just be in curiosity for them. Show up with love for yourself and for your spouse. You are amazing. And we'll see you next week. Thanks so much for listening. Make sure you subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you can get every episode. And when you are ready to be in action, come find us. Facebook, Instagram, or our website. It's all the same name, relationshipsonfire.com. We've got that S on there. There's lots of us having relationships. So relationships with an S on fire.com. Thanks so much. Saying goodbye, your fire and water gal, Corey Micah. See you next time.